Okay, over to you, Charity Nicola.
Hey, great. Good afternoon, everybody. And I'm calling this meeting to order, this meeting of the Deployment Committee to order at 2:01 p.m. on Wednesday, November 12th. And let's start the meeting with any public comments. Do we have any members of the public on the call? Okay, hearing none. We will move to our next agenda item, which is the consent agenda. And here we have two items. First is the approval of our meeting minutes. And then there's a request for an extension of a prior approval of prior CPACE approval. So let's see, is there any discussion on either of those items? Okay, so why don't we take these one at a time? Let's, can I hear a motion to approve the meeting minutes from our September 10th meeting?
So moved, Lonnie.
I'll second. I'll second. You go first, Lonnie. I'll go second.
You're a gentleman. Thank you, Ben.
We've got that covered. Thank you. Thank you both. All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that was an easy one. Brian, was there anything you wanted to elaborate on with the CPACE approval extensions? This is, as I understand it, it's something that we had approved previously, and we're looking to extend it up to 120 days from today's meeting. Is that accurate?
That's correct. Let me see, Mackie, Catherine, if there's anything you want to add, please.
I just want to flag that I expected there to be 3 transactions on the memo, and I'm wondering if 2 are in Brantford or 2 are in Bridgeport, which I don't know off the top of my head, so I'm going to have to check that unless Stephanie or Mackie, you know.
It is, yeah.
quickly.
There's 3 transactions in the memo: 2 in Brantford, 1 in Bridgeport. 2 of them, or I'm sorry, actually, one of them has expired. The other will be expired in the next couple weeks. And you're correct; these have all been previously approved. This happens periodically where the resolution to authorize staff to enter in to close the project, essentially to approve them, gives us a certain period of time. It's kind of a beast to close these things. Lender consent, things like that sometimes take longer than we had anticipated, and that's happened in the case of these, and we anticipate it with the 2 whose approval runs out in the next 10 days. So just requesting another 120 days for these 3.
Great, that's super helpful to me to provide that context. Appreciate it. Any other discussion on that item? Okay, hearing none, can I get a motion for that approval extension?
This is Dominic, so moved.
Thank you, Dominic.
Lonnie, I second. Oh, I
Great
stepped on
minds
Matt
think
again.
alike.
Just go to raising hands for these seconds. Thank you both. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, consent agenda passes. And let's see, what do we have next here? Looks like we're jumping over to financing programs. Is this you as well, Mackie?
I'll actually turn it over to Stephanie and Tria. This is the really the one transaction we have for today's meeting. So Stephanie, if you want to present this project in Bolton.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for keeping this meeting too. I know there weren't too many agenda items, so we appreciate it. My name's Stephanie Atruria. I work on the financing programs team. This CPACE transaction we're presenting is at an owner-occupied industrial factory in Bolton. It's owned by Carlisle Johnson Machine Company. The Carlisle Johnson Machine Company manufactures industrial brakes and clutches for a variety of different industries. including military vehicles, aerospace, and medical equipment. In 2021, Carlisle Johnson Machine Company was acquired by Ring Fetter Power Transmission, which is their parent company. It's a German manufacturer of mechanical power transmission products. They will be a co-borrower on the loan. And this project consists of EV chargers, a roof renovation, and a 347 kilowatt rooftop solar installation. And they have secured a tariff with Eversource. Next slide, please. Carlisle Johnson is requesting a 20-year loan term for 1.1 million in financing at 6.25%. The DSCR is 1.4. There's no mortgage on the property, so the loan to value and lien to value are both 36.5%. Next slide, please. The overall savings to investment ratio is 1.33 for a standard mortgage repayment schedule. There's positive cash flows for every year, except in years 7, 8, and 13. So out of those 20 years, there's 3 years that have negative cash flows. For that reason, we also presented the sculpted repayment schedule to the customer. That's where the ITC is applied in year 2. The overall SIR is 1.45 for a sculpted, and the cash flows are all positive except for year 2 where the ITC would be applied. And I presented this option to the customer this morning, and I'm just waiting for their confirmation on which option they'd like to go with. Yeah, so that's this transaction. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions for the team? Doesn't sound like it. Okay, so ready for our resolution. Can I get a resolution for this transaction?
And just a quick note, Chair DiNicola, this is resolution number 3, not number 4.
Thank you. I'm wondering if I'd missed one.
This is Matt. I'll move adoption of resolution number 3, labeled number 4 on our slides at home.
Thanks for the very clear resolution. A second?
This is Lonnie. I'll second resolution number 3, labeled resolution number 4, on my computer.
Thank you, Lonnie. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Resolution 3/4 is passed.
Hey, Joe, before we move on to the next item, could I ask if, as a committee or at some point, could we have like on one of our agendas, just a discussion on the sculpted versus non-sculpted? I mean, this project was fine, but I don't know how everyone else feels, but I think everyone knows my feelings on other projects where the unsculpted is, more pronounced cash flow negative in the out years. And I just, if no one else feels that way, that's fine. But if they do, I would like to have a discussion on it. So we have some kind of standard where, whether we want to have some kind of standard about a certain number of cash flow negative years or amount is something as a policy we might not want to do. So anyway, for a future discussion, if people think that's something we should consider.
I think that's a good suggestion, and Brian, we should take that up and have a conversation. This being a little newer to me, I think it would be a great conversation to have. I'd like to understand just the context a little more. I'm starting to pick up on the dynamic, but I think it would be helpful to understand and discuss those issues.
Sounds great.
Okay, agenda item number 5 is other business, and I think, Brian, this was going to you.
Myself and Barbara. So just a quick introduction. At the September 10th meeting, we were proposing an extension. Thank you for the support of the Smarty loan to include fortified measures, roof measures, as well as knob and tube wiring. We got into a discussion around our prior health and safety pilot. So Barb went back to the books to see how the pilot is going and wants to report out on that and then seek some guidance going forward. So we've got Barbara Waters, our director of the Smarty Loan Program. Turn it to you, Barb.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, so you may or may not remember, it's been a couple of months since, but to Brian's point, this committee approved the change of knob and tube and electrical panel upgrades to 100%. But there was some conversation about, like, have we done that before? And I said, yeah, we had with asbestos and mold. And afterwards, Brian pointed out to me that the change had been classified as a pilot project with up to 100 homes, less than $25,000 for each expense, and a required nexus to energy, which meant that either it had to be in conjunction with another energy measure on the loan, or that we have gotten some kind of documentation that would show that there's a nexus to energy, like they had just put in heat pumps and asbestos came up, or they plan to put in heat pumps. So I asked a colleague of mine on my team to pull all of the asbestos and mold projects in September 1st, 2019, which was the day it was announced to the contractors. So next slide, please. So since that date, there have been 52 jobs. So we are still would be considered within the pilot. None of them were over 25,000. And we spent a total of, breaking it out, there were some that were with multiple measures and there's some that were standalone, and we'll talk about that. But breaking out how much was spent on remediating asbestos and mold, it was about, surprisingly, about the same amount of money for each, $110,000, $111,000. However, out of these 52 jobs, there were 17 jobs with no documented nexus to energy. 5 were asbestos and 12 were mold. The 5 asbestos were at $34,091. There was one default, which was a $5,755 charge off from one of our lenders, C4C. And in the 12 mold projects, it was $102,000. In addition, 3 of those mold jobs had no nexus to energy, but they were done with conjunction with some EI measures. So there was either flood proofing or something like that that would have aligned with getting a mold remediated from the home. And that total was almost $8,700. So there is documentation that is missing for these jobs. And you're going to ask why. So next slide, please. We've spoken to our vendor, and there were assumptions made on the part of the vendor that these would be included automatically when we started rolling out environmental measures. And there was a lack of communication around that. So we sit now with asbestos and mold being covered at 100%. There is no real mechanism in place to ensure a nexus to energy. And in conversations with both Eric and Brian, we decided this is something we wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of. Just so that you do know, I've asked the operations people not to approve any asbestos or mold measures without my knowledge. So they will notify me if any come across. And another important fact to know, I think, is that based on the numbers of jobs that we've done since that September 1st date, it represents about 1% of our jobs. So it's a very small portion of the jobs. They don't come across very often. We wanted to get your guys' input on some next steps. We favor ending the pilot and continuing with mold and asbestos as standalone measures with no nexus to energy. We think with a small number of jobs, but with the impact that those jobs can potentially have on that homeowner moving forward, that it makes sense for us to continue with covering mold and asbestos. Another option would be to resume the plot criteria and require a nexus to energy moving forward. So wanted to put it out there, wanted to get your thoughts on this, on how, if you have any questions on, specifically what happened, and your thoughts on how we might move forward with this before we present you with a proposal.
I'll jump in. I think at the time we did it as a pilot, it was in part in response to the fact that things like home energy audits couldn't be completed with asbestos or mold. And it was frustrating that, it was kind of keeping a certain segment of homes from really taking advantage of their energy efficiency upgrades and other programs. So I think it's a good program. I'd be all in favor of continuing it. I guess my only caveat would be I don't know what our authority is if it's not in support of some sort of energy nexus. But I also think if we simply required as part of it that they get a home energy audit at the end, it seems to me that is an energy nexus, and let the market do the talking after that. If there are cost-effective upgrades, then one would presume people would avail themselves of them. So that's my thought.
I think we've done that in the past, that we've required HES in the past. I think some of the challenges are that around HES is that the delay can be significant. So in fact, we just got an email from someone in Groton who was trying to take advantage of the ITC and our not 0.99% rate. And he went to get a HES audit and he was told he couldn't get one till after the new year. So I think there's some challenges on that front with regards to timing from the utilities and their ability to meet the demand of the HES audits. I also think that if that would require an additional follow-up, because if the project is done and completed and the contractor's paid and the homeowner's paid, then the staff will be chasing down the homeowners to get the HES audits. So I think you either require it up front or you require it afterwards. Both of them have some challenges that will get in the way of projects being done.
Well, we can't require it up front though, because that's the point.
Well,
right.
They can't get it up front. Well, true. Right. They can't get it up front because they've attempted to get it up front. But it does provide a staff with a challenge where we're chasing after people. It's not a significant number. As I said, it's low on the list, but I would hate to fall out of compliance with the pilot again because we can't get a hold of a homeowner.
Could we just make it that they agree to seek it? I don't know. I guess the real question is, do we need any kind of fig leaf, if you will, to have an energy nexus? I don't know the answer to that question.
Yes, this is Brian. So this has come up with Kim Stevenson. This is a conversation that we even once previously brought to the board. At the end of the day, Under 16245N, we have the definitions of clean energy and we have the definition of environmental infrastructure. So everything that we do has to have some nexus back to either EI or clean energy. Now we can be pretty flexible on what that nexus is back to clean energy, like the requirement for the HES audit, for example, or the fact that the asbestos remediation is part of a larger clean energy improvement. I think, there has to be some nexus to fit into our enabling legislation.
Brian, do you think that just sort of the resiliency of the home, that mold and asbestos fits into that? In terms of the environmental resilience, like, it's an environmental issue in the home around having mold in the home.
And this is the first this is coming to me, and I apologize for not. But environmental infrastructure means structures, facilities, systems, services, improvement projects related to water, waste and recycling, climate adaptation, and resiliency. So you can almost read that as climate resiliency, agriculture, land conservation, parks and recreation, and environmental markets. So I'd be hard pressed to see how that fit into that definition.
The one thing I could say is that mold oftentimes accompanies floods. So I think there's a nexus with mold work being done with floodproofing.
Yes, I agree with that.
But asbestos is a little harder to tie to that.
I think that's accurate.
Okay. So what kind of, to Matt's voice, a fig leaf, would it be sort of getting a written statement from someone saying that they have planned to do certain work, or that they plan to get a HES audit afterwards? Would that cover it? Or do we need documentation that they've actually done the work or gotten the audit?
I think, oh geez, I mean, you're really asking me on the fly here. But I would think that the HES audit as a formal component, and that has some ramification if it's not completed, would be, I think, the appropriate way. Like if the audit is not does not occur within the next days, then the interest rate, you don't get the benefit of maybe potentially the SMARTY interest rate or the loan loss reserve at that point, and they would trigger up to a higher interest rate. Maybe one potential way. You don't want it to be a completely complete afterthought.
It's going to be a challenge because the way the process works, the loan closes before the work is done. So that loan is set, that loan is, in payment actually, as the work starts. So I think that changing the rate might be an issue.
When people call the utilities for this, even though they're months out, does it get scheduled? Do they say, okay, we'll put you on the schedule for April?
I believe it does.
So maybe just, schedule a home energy audit.
Yeah.
I mean,
written confirmation of the scheduled home energy audit would potentially be a solution. I like that, Matt.
Okay.
And that could be, prior to the closing. In other words, they're getting the loan.
Right.
Yeah.
We could require that paperwork to come along with the contractor's application for putting the project into engine. That if it's a standalone loan for asbestos or mold, then they would have to show that they have gotten either a HES audit in the last, I don't know, usually last a certain amount of time, or that they're getting one, they have an appointment.
And I think we could use this type of analysis for the SMARTY loan program. I think if this was a $800,000 asbestos remediation project with a tentative energy connection, I think we'd probably have to have a more robust analysis and potentially a higher bar. But I think for the purposes of the SMARTY program, the connection of a HES audit seems, which is not the large portion of what the programs for, seems that would pass the defensible test.
Well, and maybe Brian, maybe put a cap on it, because none of these were over 25K. Just say for loans under 25K, just have it scheduled.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
I don't even mind if it's a little bit higher too, because I wouldn't want to come back 2 years from now saying, yeah, now we got one at 28,000.
Right.
So
Brian, are you good with an exception for mold in conjunction with floodproofing?
yeah, I am.
Okay. Okay. So it sounds like we should come forward. This is a pilot program. We're about halfway through the pilot. Do we want to continue having it as a pilot program, or just move forward from this pilot program into sort of standard?
To me,
Because I feel
that's
like
really,
a pilot requires that we would need to come back and report.
I think that's I think it's the committee members' decision. I don't have an
Yep.
issue with it. I think it's really their call.
Here's a suggestion. We continue with the pilot and its intention, so we enforce the current requirements, but we come back to the deployment committee or the board with a recommendation on the modification that we just talked about, and then we reset after that modification is reviewed and approved.
This is Lonnie, and I think, going to the heart of this also are, oversight of vendors, so what, a vendor assumption? That's a learning experience that we've encountered. And, it just feels that, figuring out a way to kind of be a little bit more on top of that would be a good thing as well.
Well, I think we are in the process of taking this program back in-house. And I think that this is an example of one of the reasons why it will be a good idea to bring it in-house.
Yeah.
So we'll have people that will be directly reporting into the Green Bank, the director, and the channels of communication will be much more open. And it will be harder to say, "Oh, I forgot to tell you," when it's your boss.
Yeah.
Right.
Or I
So-
assumed. I just
Yes.
assumed.
Yes.
Thought there was a
So
nexus. Not like
Yes.
a nexus.
yes. So this is obviously, one of the we will work very hard to make sure stuff like this doesn't happen again. The staffing will not be an issue. The staffing part of it won't be an issue.
So we could bring this back, if the deployment committee is okay, to the board in December and just kind of make it official, kind of come out of the pilot with the design as we just discussed, and just seek full board approval so we don't have to wait to the next deployment committee meeting, if that works for folks, or we can wait to the next meeting.
I'm comfortable with the former, Brian. I don't
Me
know
too.
about other members.
Me too.
Yep, I'm
Great,
comfortable
sounds
as
good.
well.
Great. Okay, that's great. So Barbara, we'll take all of this work that we just did and we'll put it,
Yep.
make it official in a board request, and lay it out at the December meeting.
Sounds good.
And Barbara and Brian, I just add to, if you could describe for the board how you would market the program. So in other words, is it still going to be marketed as an energy program, or is this going to be a separate product that's kind of got energy tacked on through an audit requirement? So just thinking about how this would be advertised would be helpful for the board to understand.
Well, because of our increased scope around environmental infrastructure, we market it now, and I can certainly clarify this in December, but we market it now as clean energy, energy efficiency, and environmental resilience, and more resilience in your home. So that's the way that we've been talking about it to consumers ever since we launched the EI measures starting in January 2024. So no, not really need for any kind of, it falls under the same umbrella. We've just talk about the larger scope when we talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And if I just make one more comment, my reference to this as a fig leaf was not intended to mean we should just try to get the money out the door for any of this. I mean, if Brian and Barbara in staff writing this up, you can find a better way to tie it to an energy nexus that's achievable. I certainly would like that. I mean, our goal was always to get, more energy audits done and get more energy efficiency. But I also think it's practical. So by using fig leaf, I wasn't suggesting that we should just, have something we can waive. If there's a way to do it better that's meaningful, let's do it. But I also think just getting it out there, people generally will want home energy audits. So even though
Yeah.
we had a number of cases.
I think that the goal for me is to make sure that it's something that doesn't put too much of a burden, whatever it is, put too much of a burden on the consumer, because then they could walk away from the loan. And not like significant additional burden on the staff either, to make this not to burden the program with additional requirements. I think this, by telling the customer and the contractor that they need to have an appointment, is not a significant burden.
Great.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest, for example, Matt, like an alternative could have been demonstrating that they're pursuing a tax credit for a more efficient HVAC system or something. Very similar nexus. So we can look at that too, Barb.
Yeah, they could also, if they just had work done, if they're just, they have, let's say that they already have an agreement and they're not getting a Smarty loan for a heat pump, but they want to get this work done before they get the heat pump, they could show us the contract. Lots of different things that they can do.
Yeah, there's that cartoon that's, like, what if climate change wasn't real and we just did all these good things anyway? So if in the end all they got was their mold and asbestos removed, that's great.
Yeah. Okay. All right. This sounds great. Thank you so much for your input.
One other question. Do we have approved contractors for mold and asbestos remediation?
Yes. So we have approved contractors for each measure that's on our list. And they just have to go through an education process, a little bit of training, fulfill in, provide us with licenses, and then they become an approved contractor. So since we've been doing the work for so long, we certainly have asbestos and mold.
That will be part of the memo, Joe, is to look at the contractors who did the 50 jobs, because it's part of the marketing response, the question, how you're marketing the program. So we'll include that in the memo too, who those contractors are.
Super. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thank you. Great guidance. Thank you all.
Okay, that looks like the end of our agenda. Were there any other topics or issues people wanted to raise before we wind up? All right, hearing none. Thank you to all our committee members for taking your time out of your busy days today. This was a very helpful discussion, and appreciate it, Brian and your team, for the very useful information. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Thank you. Bye.